Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Outta Savannah. I am so excited because my guest today is Thérèse Cator, and she's going to share who she is and what it is that she's all about and how she can help you, because that, initially is why we are here, why I interview spiritual entrepreneurs on this show. So Thérèse, take it away.
Hi, Tammi. Thank you so much for inviting me, for having me. Hi, everyone. As Tammi said, I'm Thérèse, and I am the founder of Embodied Black Girl, which is a global community that, what I say, it creates constellations of care for Black women and femmes and women and femmes of color, communities of color. And my formal training is as a coach. I'm a leadership coach and mentor. I'm also a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm a breathwork facilitator, and so many other different modalities that I bring together. And really, it's about helping folks who are leaders step into, embody their leadership so that we can create revolutionary work and as well as a revolutionary world.
Gosh, I love that. So let's get into it. So share with us, how did you come to this place? Because I know you wasn't born, doing this.
No, I wasn't born doing this. I feel like, I was raised by, my mom was an organizer, activist. I was raised by activists and by artists. And by medicine people. So it was just a spectrum of things. So I grew up really with a firm understanding of history, of our history, of world history, and having that lens. And even though as a child, I was taught all these things, it really took becoming an adult for it to really solidify in my own experiences in my life. I also, ended up going to school. I studied many different things, but ultimately I really focused on African art and literature, as well as theater as a catalyst for change. That's what I was really interested in. So one of the big things that happened to me within about 11 years ago was when my dad passed away. And that was really the catalyst. I was like, wow, I was doing the work that I'm doing, but I wasn't vocal about it. It was like people would find me through the grapevine. It was like I would do really fronting. The front was like, oh, I'll help you with your marketing, or I help you with this and that. But really, it was depth work that I was doing. And my dad, he was a medicine man. And when I lost him, it was sudden. And it really felt like, okay, this was a call to step into the medicine that I had to bring into the world.
Yes.
What was the medicine I had to bring, and step really into it. And then a year after my dad passed, a little over a year after my dad passed, I was wrongfully detained by the police. And it was just a whole situation where we really could have lost our lives, and fortunately didn't.
Thank God.
And that also made me really, really even more grounded that my work needed to be rooted in justice, in injustice, really. So my work combines spirituality, justice, and somatics. So those are the things that really brought me to where I am today.
That is so powerful. The thing is I liked the fact that you were raised by a medicine man. That is so amazing to me. And I know that there was a lot of stuff that you got, from that upbringing that you're bringing into your work today, correct?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Brooklyn, I grew up in Brooklyn, but although I grew up in Brooklyn, I remember I would go on these walks with my mom, and she would show me the medicine that was in nature and how to use it. My mom primarily works with plant medicines, but it was seeing, even though it was New York City, growing up in that space, but seeing that actually we are on the ancestral lands of the Lenape people, and there's medicine all around. I lived really close to Prospect Park, so even just going to the park and seeing, learning about the medicine that was there.
That is something. So, as you grew up in that, did you have a feeling when you were younger that maybe this was a path that you were going to take, or were you not wanting to do that?
Yeah, when I was younger, I feel like I was always the intuitive child. Like I was always um would always have dreams and would tell my mom my dreams, but that was actually normalized. So I didn't think any of it was a big deal. I thought it was just like what everyone would do. Like in the morning, as a family, what dream did you have? And we would talk about our dreams and interpret our dreams. So for me, it was just like, this is just what you do. I didn't see it as a career path. So it wasn't really as like, oh, you can do this as a career. It was like, oh, as a career, these are the traditional routes. You could become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a teacher. These are the traditional routes that I saw. But this was just something that was part of our being. So I didn't even think of it as, oh, this is something I could do. It wasn't even in my awareness.
That is powerful, because I know that, when you think about that, a lot of people, when they're raised, especially in, that sort of arena, it's like, oh, well, but this is just what my family does. But, I don't really subscribe to that, because I want to go over here, I want to do this, and I think that because you embrace that, it was already here for you. It was already set up for you. It was already destined for you. And that catalyst being when your father transitioned, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go through any type of experiences when he transitioned? Um, I guess spiritually?
Yeah, I feel like it's been just many, many experiences. And really, the biggest thing that I've learned is that the relationship doesn't end.
Yes.
I thought that, oh, that's it. Okay, that's it. But actually, the relationship doesn't end. I see my dad in my dreams, in my meditations, in different ways, in different messages. Um, and so I didn't, that was new for me. Like I had a concept of it, but this was the closest person that I had that passed away, like that I knew really, really closely. So to see that relationship expanded, there was so much grief. And still, like, I feel like there's grief that's there of him not being in this form. But I am so keenly aware that he is with me, like, even now, even in this moment, like, he is with me, guiding me. Um, yeah, right next to me.
That is awesome. I can feel that so intensely. I actually have a similar experience like that as well with my grandmother. Same thing.
Mm.
I tell people, I'm like, y'all don't know. I was like, I miss her like it was yesterday, really. And it's been
Mm.
15, 16. She died in 2005. So what's that? 18 years?
Wow.
But I had that kind of relationship. And I also actually realized that too, which I didn't know at first, because she
Mm.
was on the other side of the spectrum, where I truly believe she was also a medicine woman, but she was also a pastor, a preacher, a teacher, prophetess, all these things. But she also did do the same thing that you were talking about. She would go out and pick the things out of the grass in the field and stuff like that, and make medicine and stuff like that. And I appreciate that, we come from that type of lineage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so beautiful that you said that. I mean, I just even think about folks in my family who um, were pastors and preachers, like my aunt, and just like prayer warriors. Like my mom is a prayer warrior. I mean, and so I grew up also in the church. So having both of those experiences, but I feel like there's something different with like Black churches in
Yes.
America and Black churches across the diaspora. There's still this really deep connection, and some people might not even realize it. There's a deep connection and interwoven with African indigenous ways of being and
Yes.
ways of relating.
Yes.
So, with what you said, it's like, of course, she went out into and was picking things in the grass. It's part of our DNA. That's how we survive. For those of us who are descendants of folks who were enslaved,
Yes.
right? That's how they survive. That's how we're here. That's how I'm here.
Yeah, that's how we're all here.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did. They knew, and it would be something, because she would just have these things and she would boil it up. Like, I think about it, we were never sick as kids. Because they made sure, she would boil some stuff up and you would drink this and, sassafras and all these things that was just disgusting tasting. Like she would boil them up, and then they would, make sure that, our bowels move like they were supposed to and things like that. And, those are simple things, but people don't do that a lot of times in this day and age. And they, rely so much on big pharma, which, I was sharing with you before we came on. I'm not, I go and I find out what's going on, and then I go to the naturopath to see, or I start doing my own research to see what I need to do, because like I said, I feel that missing link. But I know that I did learn also too, like you, that there's still connection, because she comes to me, and sometimes she'll call my name, which
Wow.
is something, and or when I just really need, some guidance, because she was my person anyway, that I would go to in physical, but yeah. So as you do this work, what has been the biggest thing that you have had to deal with people? Because I know you do, do you do individual sessions as well? So what was one of the most, the themes, the recurrent theme that you've seen with your clients?
It's so many, but it's so much. But what I would say, it's really believing the lies of the colonialist white supremacist patriarchy. It's internalizing those lies that we're not worthy, we're not enough, there's some kind of brokenness. And that brokenness manifests in many different ways for different people, right? It could be, look, for one person, it could be they constantly have negative thoughts. For another person, they could be really overachieving, right? And constantly getting like a gazillion degrees and still feel like they're not truly worthy and not and defective in some way.
Yes.
And I think, especially I work with a lot of Black women and women in general, and I just feel that it's really, there's so many lies. There's so many lies, and the lies of relating to one another, that there isn't enough, right? That it's like crabs in a bucket, right? And without recognizing, I loved, Sonia Renee Taylor had said this when I had interviewed her one time. She was like, it's crabs in a bucket, and it's not realizing that your natural habitat is not the bucket. Your natural habitat is the ocean.
Oh, that is, oh my God, that just hit me.
Yes, right? I mean, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about that. Um,
Wow.
it's not your natural
Oh,
habitat. So it's a brainwashing.
yeah.
There's brainwashing that is happening on many different levels. So it's really unplugging from that brainwashing and coming into deep embodiment.
Oh,
Deep embodiment, deep relationship to your bodies, to our bodies, to one another's bodies, because the thing that the systems of harm and oppression and marginalization does is that it creates this severance, it creates this disconnection. First, of course, we're disconnected from ourselves, but we're also disconnected from the land. Why did our ancestors know to go, and not even our ancestors, our elders know to go to nature to get that medicine? Why weren't you sick when you were young? Because they knew.
yeah.
Because they knew that disconnection from land, although it happened on a spectrum, it's not as much as it is now. And then of course that leads to disconnection from one another. There's this hyper individualism, there's this, just reading all these stories of people who seem like they have it all, and yet we find out that person is suffering from depression or suffering alone, or they're feeling really lonely.
Yes.
And obviously there can be something within someone's physiology that can cause that,
Right, right.
but sometimes it can be just isolation.
Yes. Yes.
Just isolating and not having community and not having support and not allowing ourselves to be supported. So I
Yes.
feel like I went and said so many other things, but
No, but
um,
that's perfect.
than your question. But I just feel like this is a call back into deep embodiment of our power,
That,
especially at this time.
woo, that is so powerful because that's actually the call that I'm on.
Mm.
I've been called to me. I actually had a word from the spirit. It was like, okay, so you're not to take any, classes right now.
Mm.
To just dive into you. You're to get your instructions from you, from your higher self, from the Holy Spirit, from God, source, universe, whatever people would like to call him, her, or them, is what I say. That is like, that's so awesome. Oh my God. So now how much do you feel like the pandemic, and I
Mm.
call it the pandemonium or the plandemic, how much do you feel like that affected people, especially with this, because that isolation, that was huge for a lot of people.
Yeah, the pandemic in so many ways. I lost so many people in the pandemic. As I was telling you before it came on, I'm from the East Coast and I grew up in New York City, and we lost so many people. Actually, I lost my pediatrician, who actually was retired but went back. They were calling folks
Help.
to come back and help.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he went back and helped, and he got COVID and passed away. So there's so many stories, countless stories. And I just want to just name that first, that there's so much grief, because a lot of people, they just talk about the pandemic and don't name, like, we in the Turtle Island, what it's called, the United States, we lost over 1 million people.
Yes.
And so those million people are connected to millions more people,
Yeah.
right? That means millions of people were impacted by this loss,
Mm.
not to mention people who might have survived COVID. I know there are people who are dealing with long COVID,
That would
and
be me.
so many illnesses
Yeah.
from having COVID,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of grief with that. And then we compound that with the ways that it has impacted the Black community even more, and the Indigenous community even more. So there's a lot of grief. And in many ways, we're just at another phase of the pandemic.
Yes.
Like we're at another phase of the pandemic. So it's the impacts of the pandemic. It's something that we're going to see. I think it's going to take a decade to really see what the actual impacts of it are.
I said 7 years. The decade, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because we're now in what? Year 4, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
God. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. It's like, because people think, oh, well, it's over and this and that, but you don't realize there's so many people that have been affected, in all ways, with the people that we've lost the grief, because I think my husband lost a brother as well.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
In New York. So, yeah, but it was just looking at that. And then all the people that, dealt with the illnesses and then the long COVID, that thing is no joke.
Yeah, it's no joke. And when you said about your husband's brother, I'm so sorry about that. It's also, you just reminded me of the funerals that many of us did not get to go to. Right. Or even if we were able to look over a screen. Right. I mean, I remember I attended at least several funerals online, and I remember one of them, I just felt numb.
Yeah.
Because part of a funeral is a rite. It's actually a sacred rite.
Right.
So in order for us to heal, we need to reclaim these rights. This is part of embodiment, like, not glossing over things and moving on so quickly. Yeah.
Well,
I think things that come to mind.
I think a part of that is we have been conditioned, especially now in these generations, to do that, to gloss over a lot of things and not to actually do what you said, embody. Sometimes we deprive ourselves of time to process these things, and they need to be processed.
Yeah, and that's part of the system, right? Because most people, unless you're like part of the 1% who can just like get on a yacht and just disconnect, but be disconnected in many other ways. That's a whole other can of worms. Most people have to like get up, go to work, take care of their kids. It's the hamster wheel of capitalism.
Yes. Especially here in America.
It's inconvenient.
Yes.
That's essentially, grief is inconvenient for capitalism.
Yeah.
Because grief, the pandemic, anything that is just moving forward forces us to take a pause, to have to reflect, to have to slow down. And anything that requires us to slow down, that means we're not being productive. At least in capitalistic terms, we're not productive. And if you're not productive, then you're not valued. And if you're not valued, that means you can be discarded. And if you can be discarded, that means death. So we internalize that in so many different ways that, if I'm not being productive, if I'm not doing, it means I'm going to die.
Yes. And I know that is a big part of the work that you do. Because I can already feel it's like you guide people to themselves so that they can learn how to embody all of them and everything, and not gloss over so many things, and actually take time to look at things, because we don't often do that. A lot of times we, because especially, I don't know what age group you're in, but my age group, it was a lot to get over it.
I think it hasn't stopped.
Just get it. Well, younger kids, they can't do that because they ain't built for that.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's like, get over it.
Yeah, just get over it.
That happened 10 years ago. Why are you still on that?
Yeah, I mean, I even remember my son. I have my son who just finished kindergarten. Like, he said, get over it about something because he had heard it. He had heard it out in the world. I didn't say that to him. No one, and but that's still like, I'm like, he's the youngest generation, part of the youngest generation, and this is still the programming.
I had somebody laughing. I said, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is a problem. I said, this is why you're having young people killing themselves
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they can't get over it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so where do we make that shift?
Yeah. Where and how do we make that shift?
Yeah.
What really, I think, coming together and gathering in circles, the word circles, like really coming together and gathering in circles, and as a way to heal the bond, the severances of how we relate to one another and how we relate to the earth and how we relate to ourselves, because healing does not happen in a silo.
No.
Healing happens in community, and I think you've been hearing that more and more.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if people like really understand what that means. Like, what does that mean? That
No.
healing happens in community, and what that means, at least to me, my perspective, my point of view, is to be in a relational space with one another. And
Yeah.
in order to be in a relational space, you have to be able to sit and be able to be with the joy, and you have to be able to sit and be with the grief.
Mm.
And most of us don't have maybe the capacity or maybe even know the how to do that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, our ancestors knew how to do that.
Yes,
Just simply sitting with someone and listening.
see, and I remember that. I remember that because like I said, my grandmother was my person, and I was her road dog for a while. Because I lived with her for a while, and she would go to these little churches and do healing services.
Mm-hmm.
Like out in the girl, you couldn't find them. You were looking for them. These little churches were back in the woods, different places. And we would go in Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and North Carolina, I remembered. So we would go to these little churches. They would invite her and she would come and do healing services. And I remember those days, and it was like, wow, and I think back to that because I think about the people would come out and they would come ready to, get healed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the most amazing thing, because I've been like reflecting on that a lot lately, just because I know that that is my legacy. I'm supposed to be doing that. But I've been reflecting on that and remembering, how she would bring the people and they would come and then they would come and they would bring food. Sometimes they wouldn't, have, they wouldn't pay her or anything like that. But they would bring food. They would give her a little offering, basically, might be enough to get gas and food or whatever, or maybe a hotel if we had to spend the night. But it was just the most awesome thing to see. You know what I mean? Just to see. And then of course, she would call me up and say, come up here. I want you to lay hands on this person and pray. And that's what I would do as a child. I was 3, 4, 5 years old.
Mm.
So I remember, that. And it's like, just getting back to that part, because I think about now that was a type of community. It was people coming together, to get this healing. And she of course bring a word, bring a message and all that stuff. So, that was a part of that, but we don't have a lot of that going on now, although I see things happening now, shifting.
Yeah.
So what do you see as far as that? Do you see the shift that has come or is coming, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. I just see you as 3, 4, 5 laying of hands. And that reminds me of this passage from Natosaki Shange's book for colored girls. And in the passage, she writes what they needed or what we needed was a laying of hands, a laying of hands. I don't remember it. I usually have it on my desk, but it had that. And it's so beautiful that you were able to experience that. And I think what I'm seeing is that I think people are craving it.
Yes.
People are craving it, but they may not know what they're craving.
Yeah. It feels like almost like they know they need something, but they're just not sure what.
They're not exactly right. People don't
getting your
know.
energy.
Yeah, they're like, I know I need something. And really it is to be in community and to learn how to be in community with one another.
Yes.
How we can be in community with one another. I think that is really what we're craving, and to come back to the earth.
Yes.
Whenever I'm out with my little one, he was like, oh wow, we were driving to the city and he was like, oh wow, look at those buildings. And I was like, yeah, I know he likes buildings. And I was like, well, look at the earth.
Yes.
What holds those buildings? The earth. Yes. That's what is the foundation. So a lot of times we're looking up and we forget to look down. And sometimes, we could be the person constantly looking down and we forget to look up, not at the buildings, but at the cosmos.
Yes.
But, just being able to be with all the different energies. But I think what we need is to come and gather. And I know, for example, your grandmother, she's the one that held space. But even if someone doesn't know how to do that, just gathering a couple of people.
Yes.
Right? A couple of people.
Yes.
And just taking a turn to witness one another, to share what's on your heart.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
And not to try to fix, not to try to change, not to try to create some big transformation, but only to witness that person. Yes. I mean, how many times do we even have the opportunity to just speak and people are not even are not interrupting us?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That part, yeah. And that is, to me, that's so important, because holding space is, to me, that's the first thing that I want to do for people, is I want to just allow them space.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think maybe I let them talk too much. But then I realized, no, they needed that. And that was who I needed to be for them at that time. I needed to be there, not to even speak, not to even say anything, just to listen, and allow them to express what they need to express.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's perfect. Alrighty, so we are about to land this plane. Share any last words that you want to say to the people, or if you have anything that you have going on, like if you have a program or anything, or and also share where people can connect with you, the best place for people to connect with you, and anything else you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. This has been a nourishing conversation, and I hope that even one thing touches someone out there, even if it's one person. And the best place to find me is embodiedblackgirl.com. And from there, you can join our newsletter. And you'll also receive a boundaries practice, which is something a lot of us need practice.
That is huge.
Around boundaries. What are your boundaries? So you'll receive a boundaries practice. And yeah, that's a great way to stay connected. And I'm also on Instagram, Embodied Black Girl, or also Thérèse Cator on Instagram. But those are the places. And throughout the year, I have different offerings that open up. I have an offering, I don't know when this is coming out, a decolonial leadership, which is going to be an intimate group for folks who want to really bring their work out into the world. So that's going to be the next offering that I have. And that's decolonialleadership.com.
That is going to be so fire. I'm so excited about that. And you're right. This conversation has been amazing. So let me ask you this one last question. If there was anything in the world that you could change, what would it be?
Anything in the world that I can change. I would change the way the world views, interacts with Black women and femmes. Because I know that to center the healing of Black women and femmes would then create this ripple effect of goodness for all people. Because anti-Blackness needs to be uprooted.
Yes.
Absolutely. It needs to be uprooted. And if that is uprooted, our relationship to the earth changes, our relationship to one another changes. So many relationships change because that is the foundational system of the world.
Yes, that is exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that is
love Black women and femmes, cherish them.
Yes.
Cherish us.
Yes, that really is. And it speaks to so many things, because if you think about it, first you have just the general Black people that, they want to put us down in the ground and all this stuff, and, make us prove our value and prove our worth and all of these things. But Black women is even worse. I tell people, I said, it's almost like being a triple minority, if you think about it. It's like, come on, and I was actually talking about that in terms of healthcare. Because you almost have to scream to get anybody to listen to you in healthcare as a Black woman. As a woman first, but as a Black woman, even more so. So I agree with that. That I think that would be something that, do you think that we can accomplish that in our lifetime?
I hope so. I hold on to that vision.
Yes.
So many things will have to change. I hold on to that vision. And also, I think it's really important to name that as Black folks, our healing, our liberation cannot be dependent on that. We deserve healing, joy, liberation now for ourselves.
Yes.
And grasping at it, holding on to it in any way, shape that we can.
Yes, that is so powerful. I love it. This has been such an amazing, amazing conversation. And I am so grateful that you have joined me, Thérèse Cator. I'm so just excited about this conversation, and I cannot wait for people to see it and listen to it. So in light of that, we are going to land this plane. If you are watching this on YouTube, thank you. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. If you're listening to it, do the same. Make sure that you're downloading and that you're sharing with people, because this conversation needs to go global. People need to hear it all over the planet. And so these are the intentions that I've set for this show. So, but I want to thank you for joining me, Thérèse. I really, really appreciate it. And I know that you're super busy, and I thank you for taking time out of your schedule. And I also thank you for being such a beacon of light for us, especially as a Black woman. And I just, it's so amazing to see that. And so I'm just so appreciative. And so if you want to get in touch with her, all of her details will be in the show notes. Her links and everything will be in the show notes. So you will be able to click on those and go to where she is. Also follow her on Instagram. And where else are you?
That's really where I have Facebook, but Instagram, I'm not really on Facebook.
Okay. See, and I'm the opposite.
I have Instagram. But you can find me on Facebook. You'll find me, but not everything gets posted there.
Gotcha. So make sure that you're following her definitely on Instagram. And if you are a spiritual entrepreneur and you are looking to come on my show, make sure that you reach out to me, send me a message, and let's, get you scheduled, because I'm scheduling actually for the rest of the year. I'm probably about, I think, halfway scheduled now, but there's always next year. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us on Straight Outta Savannah. And I hope that, whatever your day is, that it's magical. So thank you for joining us. Bye now.